The pregnancy test sat on the bathroom counter, those two pink lines staring back at me like they knew my whole future and felt sorry for me. 7 months had passed since that day. 7 months of carrying life inside me while watching my marriage die a slow, painful death. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the moment I walked into our bedroom and found Marcus stuffing clothes into a duffel bag, like the apartment was on fire. "What are you doing?" My voice came out strangled, broken. One hand moved instinctively to my swollen belly, protective, desperate. The baby kicked right then like she could sense the danger coming. Marcus didn't even look up. Just kept folding his shirts with deliberate care, like I wasn't standing there 7 months pregnant with his child, my waitress uniform still reeking of coffee and grease from the double shift I'd just worked to keep food on our table. "I can't do this anymore, Zara." 5 words. That's all it took to destroy a universe. Can't do what? I stepped closer, my heartbeat so violent I swear the baby could feel every thunderous pound. Can't be a father? Can't be a husband? Can't be a man? Which part exactly are you running from, Marcus? Finally, he looked at me. And God, how I wished he hadn't. Because what I saw in those eyes wasn't love or regret or even basic human decency. It was relief. Pure, undiluted relief. Like I was a prison sentence he'd finally escaped. All of it. He zipped the bag with a sound that felt like a gunshot. "I'm 26 years old, Zara. I'm not ready to be nobody's father. I got dreams, opportunities, places to be. This life." He gestured around our tiny apartment, his hand sweeping past me like I was just another piece of cheap furniture he couldn't wait to leave behind. This poverty, this struggle, this responsibility? Nah, this ain't what I signed up for. Have you ever felt your heart break so loud you were sure the neighbors could hear it through the walls? That's where I stood. In my worn-out slippers with the hole in the left toe, belly stretched tight with his daughter. Yes, we knew it was a girl. Watching the man who'd promised me forever pack up his lies and head for the door, without a single backward glance. So that's it. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. Not in front of him. "You're just leaving? What about our daughter? What about the vows you made? What about? You'll figure it out." He slung the bag over his shoulder with practiced ease, like he'd been planning this exit for weeks. Probably had been. "You're resourceful. You always land on your feet. That's what you do, right?" The cruelty of it stole my breath. "Marcus, please." I hated the begging in my voice, hated myself for even trying. "We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can." "There's nothing to work out." His hand was on the doorknob now. "I don't love you anymore, Zara. Maybe I never did. Maybe we were just two broke kids who thought marriage would fix being broke. But it didn't. And now there's a baby coming, and I can't. I won't. You won't." The tears came then, hot and fast and furious. "You won't be a father to your own child? You won't honor the promises you made? You won't even try?" He opened the door. Cold November air rushed in, bringing the smell of rain and dead leaves and the death of everything I'd believed in. "Good luck, Zara. I mean it. I hope things work out for you." And then he was gone. Just like that. No dramatic door slam. No final argument. No last look at the woman carrying his child. Just gone. Like our 3 years together meant nothing. Like the baby in my belly was some unfortunate mistake he could walk away from and never think about again. I stood there frozen, listening to his footsteps echo down the stairwell, then the building door closing, then his car starting, then driving away. Each sound a nail in the coffin of my old life. Then my knees buckled. I collapsed onto the hardwood floor, both hands wrapped around my belly, and I cried. Not the pretty tears you see in movies. These were ugly, soul-deep sobs that came from a place so dark I didn't even know it existed. Inside me, the kind of crying that makes you gag and gasp and wonder if you'll ever breathe normally again. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Like she was saying, "Mom, I'm here. We're going to be okay." But I didn't believe it.
Not then.
Not sitting on that cold floor in our apartment that still smelled like his cologne. Staring at the wedding ring he'd left on the dresser like it was trash he couldn't be bothered to take with him. How do you come back from this? How do you survive being abandoned at your most vulnerable moment? How do you explain to your daughter one day that her father looked at her existence like it was a burden instead of a blessing? I didn't have answers. All I had was pain and fear and a rent payment due in 2 weeks that I couldn't afford. Alone. But here's what I didn't know then, what I couldn't possibly understand while sitting in that devastation. Sometimes rock bottom becomes your foundation. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is actually the beginning of your greatest transformation. Sometimes the man who breaks you is just clearing space for the woman you're about to become. You can like and subscribe to the video for more. We are stronger together. Had to survive the breaking first. The next 3 months were hell on earth. If you've ever been pregnant and alone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, let me paint you a picture that might make you uncomfortable. Morning sickness that lasted all day and night, swollen ankles that turned every shift into torture, back pain that made sleep impossible, and a broken heart that hurt worse than all the physical pain combined. I worked at Rosie's Diner on Jefferson Avenue. It wasn't fancy, cracked red vinyl booths, a checkerboard floor that had seen better decades, and a kitchen that produced solid comfort food for working-class folks who couldn't afford anything better. But it was work, and work meant money, and money meant survival. 6 days a week, sometimes 7 when the bills piled higher than my resolve. The other waitresses tried to help. Most of them were older black women who'd raised kids alone, who'd survived their own no-good men, who recognized that look in my eyes, the one that said I was drowning but too proud to scream for help. "Baby girl," Miss Patricia said one February afternoon, sliding into a booth after her shift ended. She was 50-something, had raised 3 sons on tips and grit, and had a way of looking through your bullshit straight to your
Soul.
I know that look. That's the look of a woman who thinks her story ends here in this diner. I was wiping down tables, my belly so enormous I had to lean sideways to reach the far corners. 8 months. Pregnant now. 1 month away from everything changing forever. Doesn't it end here? I tried to smile but failed. I'm about to be a single mother making $7.50 an hour. Plus tips.
I can barely afford this life now.
How am I supposed to afford a baby? She laughed, not meanly, but like someone who'd stood exactly where I was standing and somehow made it to the other side. You think of the first woman to have a baby with no man and no money? Child, we've been doing this since the beginning of time. Your grandmother did it. My grandmother did it. We survive because that's what we do. We're built different. I don't feel built different, I whispered, sitting down heavily across from her. I feel broken. Miss Patricia reached across the table and took both my hands in hers. Her skin was rough from years of hard work, but her grip was steady, strong. Broken and built different ain't mutually exclusive, baby.
Sometimes you
gotta break all the way down before you can build yourself back up into who you're really supposed to be.
That
man leaving you? That wasn't your ending. That was your beginning. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe there was something beyond this pain, beyond these greasy uniforms and aching feet, and terror that kept me awake at night. But belief requires hope, and mine had walked out the door with Marcus. What if I can't do this? The question came out small, scared. What if I fail her? Then you get back up and try again. Miss Patricia squeezed my hands. That's all any of us can do.
Get
knocked down, get back up. Get knocked down again, get back up again. You keep getting up until one day you realize you're not getting knocked down anymore. You're standing strong. You're building something. You're becoming someone that little girl is gonna be so damn proud to call mama. I cried again. Seemed like all I did those days was cry. But this time, mixed in with the sadness, there was something else. Something small and fragile but real. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just stubbornness. Maybe there's no difference between the two when you're fighting for your life. Amara came into this world on a Tuesday in March during the worst snowstorm Detroit had seen in 20 years. Of course she did. Because apparently my daughter decided early that she was going to be dramatic. Labor started at 3 a.m. Contractions so intense I thought I was dying. I called Miss Patricia because I didn't have anyone else. No family nearby. My mother had passed when I was 19, and I'd never known my
Father.
no friends close enough to burden at 3 in the morning. Just Miss Patricia, who showed up at my apartment 40 minutes later in her pajamas and winter coat, helped me to her car, and drove me to Detroit. Receiving hospital through snow so thick we could barely see the road. You picked one hell of a night for this, she muttered, white-knuckling the steering wheel. Tell that to your granddaughter. I gasped between contractions. 12 hours of labor. 12 hours of pain so consuming I forgot my own name. 12 hours of pushing and breathing and screaming and praying. No epidural because I couldn't afford it. No husband holding my hand. No family filling the waiting room. Just me, Miss Patricia, and 2 overworked nurses who'd seen too many women like me come through those doors. But then they placed her in my arms. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of absolute perfection. Tiny fingers that wrapped around my thumb like they'd been waiting their whole existence, all 9 months of it, to finally hold on to me. Eyes that somehow seemed to see straight through to my soul. Skin a shade darker than mine, beautiful and warm and alive. Amara, I whispered, my voice hoarse from screaming. Your name is Amara. Miss Patricia leaned over, tears streaming down her face. What's it mean? Grace. I couldn't stop staring at my daughter. It means Grace, my grandmother's name. Because if this isn't Grace, if surviving everything I've been through to get to hold her isn't Grace, then I don't know what is. And in that moment, something inside me fundamentally changed. Broke open. Transformed.
Crystallized into
something harder and clearer and more determined than I'd ever been in my life. I looked at Amara's face, studied every perfect detail, and made a promise. A vow deeper and more sacred than any wedding oath. I will never let you see me broken. I will be everything he wasn't. I will show you what real strength looks like. I will build us a life so beautiful that one day you'll tell your own children how your mama rose from nothing and became everything. Did I feel that strength right then?
Hell no.
I was exhausted, traumatized, terrified. My body hurt everywhere. My heart was still shattered. I had $17 in my checking account and no idea how I'd pay next month's rent. But sometimes strength isn't about what you feel. It's about what you decide. And I decided right there in that hospital room that Marcus leaving was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it wouldn't be the thing that defined me. My daughter would never know poverty if I could help it. Would never know abandonment. Would never question whether she was wanted or loved or valued. I'd make sure of that even if it killed me. Marcus didn't call. Not when Amara was born. Not when I sent him a photo, one final attempt at decency, at giving him a chance to be a father. Not on her first day home from the hospital. Not on her first week of life. Not on her first month. Nothing. Complete and total silence. Like we never existed. Like the daughter we created together was some inconvenient mistake he could erase by simply not acknowledging her existence.
And you know what?
That silence hurt worse than him leaving. Because leaving is an action. It's a decision. Made in a moment of weakness or selfishness or fear. But silence? Silence is sustained cruelty. Silence is choosing every single day to pretend your child doesn't breathe and cry and need you. I went back to work when Amara was 6 weeks old. Had to. The hospital bills had arrived even with Medicaid. There were co-pays and expenses that made my stomach drop when I opened the envelopes. Rent was
due.
Formula wasn't free. Diapers cost more than I'd ever imagined possible. The math was brutal and unforgiving. Rent $650, formula $150, diapers $80, utilities $100, phone $45. That was over $1,000 before I bought a single item of food for myself, or clothes for Amara, or gas for the bus, or any of the million other things a baby needs. I made maybe $1,200 a month on good months. Sometimes less. You do the math. It doesn't work. There's no way to make it work. You just find a way anyway because the alternative is unthinkable. Miss Patricia's daughter Keisha watched Amara during my shifts. She charged me half what the daycare wanted. $300 a month instead of $600, but it still devoured most of what I had left after rent. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. Wore the same 3 uniforms in rotation, washing them by hand in my sink every night because the laundromat cost money I didn't have. Walked 40 minutes to work, when the bus fare would have meant choosing between that and Amara's formula. The other waitresses saw what was happening. They'd accidentally make too much staff meal and insist I take the leftovers home. They'd pool their tips sometimes and press an extra 20 into my hand when they thought I wasn't paying attention. They'd show up at my apartment with bags of hand-me-down baby clothes there. Grandkids had outgrown. We take care of our own, Miss Patricia said whenever I tried to refuse their help. You just remember this. When you make it big someday, remember who had your back when you had nothing. When I make it big? I'd laughed bitterly. Miss Pat, I'm a waitress with a GED and a baby. Big ain't in my future. She'd given me that knowing look again. You keep thinking that, baby girl. But I've been watching you. You got something special. I don't know it yet, but it's there. Just waiting for the right moment to show itself. I didn't believe her. Couldn't afford to believe in anything except surviving one more day. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom when you're young. You still have the energy to climb. You can like and subscribe to the video for more. We are stronger together. You still have the hunger. You still have that desperate, clawing need to prove that your life means something more than the circumstances that tried to bury you. I just needed a spark. Something to ignite the fire that would burn away everything I'd been and forge me into everything I was meant
To become.
That spark came on a Friday night in October. Amara was 7 months old. I'd been back at work for 5 months, barely surviving, definitely not thriving. Just existing in this gray space between despair and determination. We were slammed that night. Every booth full, tickets piling up in the kitchen window, that beautiful chaos that means good tips if you can survive it. I was refilling coffee, my feet screaming in cheap shoes I'd glued back together 3 times, when someone pumped quarters into the old jukebox in the corner. Aretha Franklin's Respect started playing, and something came over me. Maybe it was exhaustion making me delirious. Maybe it was the culmination of 6 months of suppressed emotion finally finding an outlet. Maybe it was divine intervention, the universe deciding I'd suffered enough. And it was time for my breakthrough. Whatever it was, I started singing along. Not quietly. Not under my breath like I usually did when music played. I sang loud and clear and full-throated, my voice soaring over the diner noise, hitting notes I didn't even know I could reach. The place went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every fork paused halfway to mouths. Every head turned. I didn't even realize what was happening at first. I was just singing, just letting the music carry me somewhere. Beyond the pain and the exhaustion and the endless grind of survival. Just being free for 3 minutes and 47 seconds. When the song ended, the diner erupted. Applause. Cheering. Customers on their feet. Someone yelling, "Girl, you better be on somebody's record label." I stood there frozen, coffee pot still in my hand, face burning with embarrassment and confusion and something else I couldn't quite name. Miss Patricia was crying, full-on tears streaming down her face. "I told you," she whispered, grabbing my shoulders. "I told you that you had something special." "It was just singing," I stammered. "Just singing." An older man in booth 7 stood up, walked over. He was dressed better than our usual clientele, expensive coat, nice shoes. Young lady, I've been in the music industry for 30 years. That wasn't just singing. That was magic. He handed me a business card. David Richardson, A&R for Motown Records. When you're ready to change your life, you call me. I took the card with shaking hands, sure this was some kind of joke or dream or cosmic mistake. But it wasn't. That was the night everything changed. That was the night the old Zara, broke, abandoned, barely surviving, began to die. And the new Zara, the one who would rise from nothing to become everything, began to be born. I stared at that business card for 3 days straight. David Richardson, A&R representative, Motown Records. A phone number that might as well have been the key to another dimension because it felt that impossible, that far from my reality. You gonna call him or just memorize his contact info? Miss Patricia asked, refilling my coffee during our morning shift prep. Amara was with Keisha, probably drooling on some toy and being absolutely perfect like she always was. What if it's fake? I whispered, turning the card over in my hands for the 1,000th time. What if he was just being nice? What if I call and he doesn't even remember me? Then you wasted 5 minutes on a phone call. She sat down across from me, that knowing look in her eyes. Again. But what if it's real, Zara? What if this is your moment and you're too scared to take it? I have a 7-month-old baby, Miss Pat. I can't afford to chase fairy tales. You can't afford not to. She reached across and grabbed my hand. Listen to me, baby girl. I've worked in this diner for 23 years. You know how many people I've seen come through here with real talent? With real potential? Dozens. You know how many actually did something about it?
None. 0.
They all had excuses. Good excuses. Bills to pay, kids to feed, life getting in the way. And you know where they all are now?
Right
here. Still waiting tables. Still dreaming. Still making excuses. Her words hit like a slap, but the loving kind. The kind that wakes you up. I'm scared, I admitted.
Good.
Scared means it matters. Now call the damn number.
So I did.
My hands shook so badly I had to dial 3 times before getting it right. The phone rang once, twice, 3
times.
I was about to hang up when a professional female voice answered. David Richardson's office. This is Monica speaking. Oh God. He had an office. And an assistant. This was real. Hi. My name is Zara Mitchell. Mr. Richardson gave me his card last week at Rosie's Diner and told me to call when I was ready to, change my life. I cringed at how ridiculous I sounded.
Oh.
You're the singer? Monica's voice warmed immediately. David's been hoping you'd call. Hold on, let me transfer you. Before I could process what was happening, a deep male voice came on the line.
Zara.
I'm glad you called.
I
was starting to think I'd scared you off.
No, sir.
I wasn't sure if you were serious. He laughed, warm and genuine. Honey, I don't hand out my card for fun. That voice of yours? That's the kind of talent I've spent 30 years looking for. When can you come to the studio? The studio?
My voice came out as a squeak.
I want to hear what you can do with some real production. This Saturday work for you? Say 2 p.m. Saturday. 2 days away. I'd have to find someone to watch Amara. I'd have to figure out bus routes to wherever his studio was. I'd have to. Yes, I heard myself say. Saturday at 2 p.m. I'll be there. He gave me the address. A studio in Midtown. An area of Detroit I'd only ever passed through on buses, never stepped foot in. When I hung up, Miss Patricia was grinning like she'd won the lottery. Well, I have a studio session on Saturday. I knew it. She jumped up and hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. I knew you had it in you, but as her excitement washed over me, a different feeling crept in. Terror. Bone deep, suffocating terror. What if I got there and couldn't sing? What if that night at the diner was a fluke? What if I embarrassed myself? What if this was all some elaborate mistake, and I was about to make the biggest fool of myself in front of actual music industry professionals? What if I failed Amara by chasing this impossible dream instead of just working and surviving like I was supposed to? Saturday came too fast and too slow all at once. I spent 2 hours trying on every piece of clothing I owned, which wasn't much. Everything was either stained, stretched out, or screamed broke single mother. Finally, I settled on my least terrible jeans and a black sweater that had belonged to my mother. It was the nicest thing I owned. Miss Patricia's daughter Keisha agreed to watch Amara for free. You go chase that dream, girl. We got your baby. The bus ride to Midtown took 45 minutes and 3 transfers. I clutched my purse, which contained exactly $8, 2 diapers, and that business card, like it was a life preserver. The studio was in a renovated warehouse that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 years of waitressing. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, modern furniture that looked like art installations.
I felt like an
imposter the moment I walked through the door. Zara Mitchell? A young woman with purple hair and expensive-looking glasses approached. I'm Jasmine, David's assistant. Come on back. She led me through a maze of hallways lined with gold and platinum records. Names I recognized from the radio. Artists who'd made it. Who'd become somebody. Could I really be one of them? The recording booth was smaller than I expected, but somehow more intimidating. Soundproof walls. Professional microphone that probably cost more than my car, if I'd had a car. Headphones. A whole control room visible through glass where David sat with 2 other people I didn't know. You ready? David's voice came through the speakers, warm and encouraging.
no.
Yes. We're going to start simple. I'm going to play a track, and I want you to just feel it. Don't overthink.
Just let that
Voice of yours do what it does naturally. Can you do that for me? I nodded, slipping on the headphones. Music filled my ears. A slow, soulful R&B track with a melody that immediately grabbed something in my chest and pulled. And then I opened my mouth. What came out wasn't me.
It was something bigger than me.
Something that had been locked away for 23 years, just waiting for permission to exist. My voice soared and dipped and wrapped around the melody, like it had been written specifically for me. I sang about pain, about abandonment, about being left when you needed someone most, about finding strength in the wreckage, about rising. I sang about my life, without saying a single specific word about my life. When the track ended, I opened my eyes. Through the glass, I could see all 3 of them staring. David had his hand over his mouth. Jasmine was crying. The third person, a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair, was shaking her head in disbelief. Holy hell! David's voice crackled through the speakers. Do that again. And this time, we're recording. We spent 4 hours in that studio. I sang 6 different songs. Ballads. Up-tempo tracks. A gospel-influenced piece that made me think of my grandmother. With each song, I felt myself becoming more real, more solid, more like the person I was supposed to be all along. When we finally finished, David called me into the control room. Zara, this is Linda Morrison. She's a producer I've worked with for 15 years. Linda, tell her what you just told me. Linda looked at me with an intensity that should have been intimidating but somehow wasn't. In 15 years of producing, I've heard maybe 5 voices that made me forget about everything else. Voices that have that thing, that indefinable thing that makes people stop and listen. You have it. Whatever it is, you have it. My eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? David pulled out a contract. I want to sign you. Not to string you along or waste your time. I want to put you in the studio, develop your sound, and get you on the radio within 6 months. I believe in you that much. I stared at the papers in front of me. My hands were shaking again. What's the catch? I asked because there had to be one. Life didn't just hand you miracles without taking something in return. No catch. Standard development deal. We invest in your career, studio time, producers, marketing. In return, we get a percentage of your earnings. And before you worry, it's a fair contract. I can give you time to have a lawyer look it over. But Zara? He leaned forward. I've been doing this a long time. What you have doesn't come around often. We need to move on this. How much time do I have to think about it? Take the weekend. Come back Monday with your decision. I took the contract home on 3 different buses, holding it like it might evaporate if I loosen my grip.
Amara
Was sleeping when I got back to our tiny apartment. I sat on the edge of my bed, which was also our couch, and read every single word of that contract 3 times. It was dense. Legal language I barely understood. But the numbers were clear enough. A $25,000 advance against future earnings, studio support, professional development, a real shot at making it $25,000. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. Enough to get us out of this apartment. Enough to stop worrying about formula and diapers and whether I'd have to choose between electricity and food next month. But it was also a risk. A massive, terrifying risk. Because what if I signed this contract, took their money, and then failed? What if I wasn't good enough? What if that studio magic didn't translate to radio? What if I was just another failed artist story? What do I do, baby girl? I whispered, watching Amara sleep. Do I take the safe road, or do I bet everything on something that might not work? She stirred, made that little sound she always made when she was dreaming. And something Miss Patricia had said echoed in my mind. You keep getting up until one day you realize you're not getting knocked down anymore. Maybe this was my chance to stop getting knocked down. Maybe this was my chance to build something so strong that nobody, not Marcus, not poverty, not circumstance, could ever knock me down again. I called David Sunday night. I'll sign, I said. When do we start? His laugh was triumphant. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Welcome to Motown Records, Zara. Your life just changed. He wasn't lying. The next 6 months were the most intense, exhausting, exhilarating period of my life. I quit the diner, which felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. The advance money gave me a cushion, but not a huge one after I paid off my debts and moved Amara and me into a slightly better apartment in a slightly safer neighborhood. Every day, I was in the studio, working with producers who'd created hits for artists I'd only ever heard on the radio, learning how to control my voice, how to perform, how to become someone people would want to listen
to.
It wasn't just singing. It was building a brand, creating an image, learning the business side of music. David brought in vocal coaches, performance coaches, even a stylist who taught me how to dress like I belonged in this world I was stepping into. You've got the talent, Linda told me during one late-night session. But talent alone won't make you a star. You need the whole package. The look, the story, the connection with your audience. You need to make people feel something. What should they feel? I asked. Hope. She said it without hesitation. Make them feel hope. Make them believe that no matter how hard things get, they can rise above it. Because you did. That's your story, Zara. Single mother left pregnant, working minimum wage, discovered singing in a diner. That's the American dream wrapped in struggle and triumph. People will connect with that. So that became my brand. My story. My message. The girl who was left behind and found her voice. The woman who rose from nothing. The mother fighting for something better. We recorded my first single in March, exactly 1 year after Amara was born. It was called Still Standing.
A
Song I'd co-written with Linda about surviving the worst moment of your life and discovering you're stronger than you ever knew. The lyrics came from my soul. You thought I'd break when you walked away, thought I'd crumble, thought I'd fade, but I'm still standing. Standing tall, stronger now than before the fall. You took your love, but left something better. You can like and subscribe to the video for more. We are stronger together. A woman who learned she don't need forever. I'm still standing, Standing strong, you were my ending, but I was wrong. When David played back the final mix, I cried. Because it wasn't just a song.
It was my testimony. My story in
3 minutes and 42 seconds. This is going to be big, David said, certainty in his voice. Are you ready for what comes next? I thought about Amara, now 1 year old, taking her first wobbly steps around our new apartment. Thought about the life I was building for her. Thought about the woman I was becoming. I'm ready, I said. And I meant it. Still Standing dropped on a Tuesday in April. David had arranged for it to premiere on 3 major Detroit radio stations simultaneously. I sat in my apartment, Amara on my lap, listening to my voice come through the speakers for the first time as an actual recording artist. It felt surreal. Impossible. Like I'd somehow stepped into someone else's life. The radio host's voice came on after the song ended. That was Still Standing by newcomer Zara Mitchell, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to be hearing a lot more from this young lady. That voice, that song, that's the kind of real, raw talent we don't get enough of anymore. Zara Mitchell, remember that name. My phone started ringing immediately. Miss Patricia. I heard it. Oh my God, baby, I heard you on the radio. Keisha. Girl, that's you. My daughter is watching her daughter, and you're on the radio. Numbers I didn't recognize. Is this Zara Mitchell? I'm calling from. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once. But that was just the beginning. Within a week, Still Standing was the most requested song on Detroit radio. Within 2 weeks, it had spread to Chicago, Cleveland, and Atlanta. Within a month, it was climbing the national R&B charts. Within 3 months, it hit #1. I watched it happen like it was happening to someone else. The girl who'd been scraping by on tips and food stamps 6 months ago was now a chart-topping artist. The single mother who'd cried herself to sleep in a studio apartment was now being interviewed by magazines and radio stations. The woman Marcus had left pregnant and abandoned was now somebody. And somewhere out there, I knew he was hearing my song, hearing my voice, hearing my story, our story, turned into a hit that millions of people were connecting with. I wondered if he felt anything. Regret.
shame.
Recognition that he'd thrown away something real. But honestly, I was too busy building my new life to spend much time thinking about him. The money started coming in. Real money. More than I'd ever imagined. My first royalty check was for $47,000. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes, sure there'd been a decimal point error. It's real, David assured me. And this is just the beginning. The album drops next month, and if the rest of the tracks perform even half as well as Still Standing, you're looking at a very different life, Zara. I bought a house. Nothing crazy. A modest 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood with a yard where Amara could play. But it was mine.
Ours.
Our home that nobody could take away. I furnished it piece by piece, crying in furniture stores because I could actually afford to buy things new instead of finding them on curbs or at thrift stores. I opened a savings account for Amara's education, put away money for emergencies, bought health insurance, did all the normal things that felt extraordinary when you'd never been able to do them before. But the best part? The absolute best part was picking Amara up from daycare in my new car, a sensible Honda. Nothing flashy, and knowing I'd never have to choose between her formula and my electricity again. Knowing I'd never have to walk 40 minutes in the snow to save bus fare. Knowing she'd never go without because I could finally provide. Mama, she'd squeal when she saw me, running on those toddler legs, arms outstretched. And every single time, my heart would almost burst with gratitude and triumph and fierce protective love. This was what I'd been fighting for. This moment. This life. This future. The album Phoenix Rising dropped in September and debuted at #3 on the Billboard 200. #3. In the entire country. A girl from Detroit who'd been serving eggs and coffee 2 years ago now had the 3rd most popular album in America. The press tour was intense. Morning shows. Radio interviews. magazine photo shoots. Everyone wanted to know my story, and I told it over and over. Not for sympathy, but to show other women that rock bottom doesn't have to be your ending. So your ex-husband left you when you were 7 months pregnant? The interviewer, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, leaned forward during a taping for a major morning show. And now you're one of the biggest new artists in the country. How does that feel? I smiled, the kind of smile that came from a place of real peace. It feels like vindication, but not the petty kind. I don't need him to see what he missed or to regret his choices. I needed me to see what I was capable of. I needed my daughter to grow up watching her mother refuse to stay broken. Have you heard from him since the album dropped?
No.
And that's okay. He made his choice. I made mine. His choice was to walk away from responsibility.
Mine
was to rise above circumstances. We're living in the consequences of those choices now. The audience erupted in applause. That clip went viral. Within days, it had been shared millions of times across social media. Women commenting with their own stories of being left, of struggling, of surviving. I'd become more than just an artist. I'd become a symbol. And that responsibility, that platform, I didn't take it lightly. I started a foundation for single mothers pursuing their dreams, offering childcare assistance, career development, financial literacy courses. Everything I wish I'd had when I was at my lowest. I spoke at community centers and women's shelters. Showed up at places where women like I used to be were. Still fighting. Still surviving. Still hoping for something better. You are not your circumstances, I told a room full of young mothers at a Detroit shelter one evening, Amara, now 2 years old, playing quietly with toys in the corner. You are not the man who left you. You are not your bank account. You are not your struggle. You are the phoenix waiting to rise from those ashes. I know, because I was you. 2 years ago, I was exactly you. And look at me now. They looked, and they believed, because I was living proof that transformation was possible. The money kept coming. The success kept building. Second single hit #1. Third single hit #2. Album went platinum, then double platinum. I bought Miss Patricia a house. She cried for 3 days straight. You didn't have to do this, she kept saying. Yes, I did, I told her. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You told me I had something special. You pushed me to make that call. This isn't charity, Miss Pat. This is gratitude. Life was good. Better than I'd ever dreamed possible. But the universe, I was about to learn, wasn't done with my story yet. The best part was still to come. And so was the moment when Marcus would finally understand exactly what he'd lost. 3 years after Still Standing changed my life, I was on top of the world. 3 platinum albums. 2 Grammy nominations. A sold-out national tour. Magazine covers.
brand
Partnerships. A net worth that had crossed into the 8-figure territory. At 26 years old, I'd built an empire from nothing but a voice and sheer determination. But the best part? The absolute best part was watching Amara grow up knowing nothing but stability, love, and possibility. She was 4 years old now, smart as a whip, with my eyes and a personality that could light up any room. She went to the best preschool in Detroit. Had everything she needed, and most of what she wanted. Would never know what it felt like to hear her mother cry because the electricity was shut off or to eat ramen noodles for the 5th night in a row. That's what success meant to me. Not the awards or the fame or even the money itself. It was the security. The knowledge that my daughter would never struggle the way I had. That I'd broken the cycle. That I'd built something permanent. But there was one thing missing. One piece of the puzzle I hadn't quite figured out yet.
love.
Oh, I'd dated. Kind of. A few dinners here and there with men who were either intimidated by my success or only interested in it. Men who saw Grammy-nominated artist Zara Mitchell instead of just Zara. Men who wanted arm candy for red carpets but ran when they realized I was a package deal, Me and my daughter, take it. Or leave it. They all left it. And honestly, I was okay with that. I'd learned to be whole on my own. Learned that I didn't need a man to complete me or validate me or save me. I'd save myself. Amara and I were a perfect unit of two. But sometimes, late at night after she fell asleep, I'd wonder what it would be like to share this life with someone. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Someone who loved Amara as much as I did. Someone who saw my success as something to celebrate, not compete with. Someone who chose us every single day. That person walked into my life on a Tuesday in June, and I almost ran him over in a parking garage that I was late for a meeting with my management team. Running on 4 hours of sleep because Amara had been up half the night with a nightmare about monsters under her bed. My coffee had spilled in the car. My phone was
Dying.
and I was trying to parallel park my Range Rover in a tight spot while simultaneously checking emails. And not losing my mind. I didn't see him. 1 second I was backing up, the next I heard a bang and a man's voice shouting, "Whoa, whoa. WHOA. I slammed on the brakes, my heart in my throat. Oh God. Oh no. Please don't let me have hit someone.
Please.
Don't let this be the day Zara Mitchell's headline is Singer Runs Over Pedestrian in Parking Garage. I jumped out of the car, prepared to grovel and apologize and call an ambulance and probably cry. But the man standing behind my car was fine. More than fine. He was tall, at least 6 feet 2 inches, with rich brown skin, a perfectly tailored navy suit, and an expression that was somewhere between amused and exasperated. His briefcase lay on the ground where he'd apparently dropped it, but he was completely unharmed. I am so sorry. I rushed over. Are you okay? I didn't see you. I was distracted. You were on your phone, he said, but his tone wasn't angry. Just matter of fact. I know. That's awful. I shouldn't have been. Are you sure you're okay? He bent down to pick up his briefcase, checking it for damage. I'm fine. You stopped in time. Barely, but you stopped. I could have hit you, but you didn't. He looked at me then, really looked, and something flickered in his dark eyes. Recognition.
Wait.
You're Zara Mitchell. My stomach sank. Here we go. Either he was about to ask for an autograph or a selfie, or he was going to try to get my insurance information and sue me for emotional distress. Both had happened before. I said carefully. My niece loves your music. She's 6. Plays Still Standing on repeat until her parents want to pull their hair
Out.
He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Suddenly, he wasn't just handsome. He was magnetic.
I'm Julian.
Julian Foster. He extended his hand. I shook it and felt something. A spark. Connection. The kind of chemistry you read about in books but rarely experience in real life. I really am sorry about almost hitting you, I said, still holding his hand a beat too long before dropping it. I really am sorry about standing behind your car while you were clearly in a hurry. He checked his watch. Speaking of which, I'm late for a board meeting. But maybe we could grab coffee sometime? So you can properly apologize for your attempted vehicular assault. Was he flirting with me? After I almost ran him over? Are you seriously asking me out right now? Is it working? I laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time a man had made me laugh? Maybe. What do you do, Julian Foster? Besides nearly get hit by distracted singers in parking garages. I'm the CEO of Foster Tech. We design software for actually, you know what? That's boring first date conversation. Let's save it for coffee.
CL.
Of course he was. The universe had sent me a handsome, successful man who didn't seem fazed by who I
Was.
and I'd almost run him over. Okay, I heard myself say. Coffee. But fair warning, I have a 4-year-old daughter and a crazy schedule. And I don't do games or drama or anything that's going to waste my time. If that's a problem, tell me now. He looked surprised by my directness, then impressed. I appreciate that. And no, it's not a problem. I like kids. I respect busy schedules. And I definitely don't do games. Too old for that nonsense. How old? 32. You? 26. And already a music icon. Impressive. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. I'll text you so you have mine. And this time, maybe don't text and drive. I gave him my number, feeling something I hadn't felt in years.
Hope. Possibility. Excitement.
He texted me before I even got to my meeting. This is Julian, the guy you tried to assassinate. How's Friday at? 7. I texted back. Friday works. And I promised to leave my car at home. Friday came, and I was more nervous than I'd been before my first Grammy performance. Mama, why are you changing clothes again? Amara asked from my bed, where she was playing with her dolls because Mama has a meeting with a friend. A boyfriend or a girlfriend? Smart kid. Too smart. A friend who happens to be a boy. Her eyes went wide. Like a prince? Are you going to marry him? Baby, no. It's just coffee. Just talking. That's all. But if he's nice, can he be my daddy? My heart cracked. She'd been asking about her father more lately. Questions I dreaded. Why don't I have a daddy? Where is he? Doesn't he love me? I sat down next to her, pulling her into my lap. You have me, baby girl. Isn't that enough? You're the best mama ever, she said, wrapping her little arms around my neck. But Jasmine at school has a daddy who takes her to the park and pushes her on the swings really high. I want that too. I can push you on the swings. It's not the same. She pulled back to look at me with those wise, old soul eyes. You're a mama. Mamas are for hugs and kisses and bedtime stories. Daddies are for swings and piggyback rides and making you feel safe. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that her father chose not to be those things? That he walked away before he ever met her? That his absence wasn't her fault but his failure? If I meet someone special, I said carefully, someone who loves you as much as I do, someone who wants to be in our lives for real, not just for fun but for all the hard parts too, then maybe. But baby, that's rare. Most people don't get that. You'll find him, mama. You're magic. Magic people always get happy endings. If only life worked that way. Julian picked me up at 7 sharp. He'd somehow found out where I lived, probably Google, everything about me was online, and showed up with flowers. Not roses. Sunflowers. Bright and cheerful and unexpected. My mother always said sunflowers are for strong women, he explained. Women who've weathered storms, but still turn toward the light. I melted a little. Okay, maybe more than a little. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk along the Detroit riverfront. A walk turned into hours of conversation that felt easier than breathing. He told me about growing up in Chicago, being raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to put him through college, about building his company from nothing, fighting for every contract, every investor, every breakthrough, about losing his mother to cancer 2 years ago and still feeling that void every single day. I told him about Marcus, about being left pregnant, about the diner and the discovery and the climb from nothing to everything, about Amara and how she was my entire world, about being terrified of letting anyone new in because what if they left too? I won't, he said simply. You can't promise that. You don't even know me. You're right. I can't promise forever on a first date. But I can promise I'm not that guy. I'm not the man who walks away when things get hard. I watched my mother struggle alone my entire childhood. I saw what it did to her, never having a partner to share the load. I swore I'd never be the man who created that situation for a woman. Pretty words. Watch me back them up with action. And God help me, I wanted to believe him. We dated for 6 months before I let him meet Amara. 6 months of dinners and phone calls and stolen moments between his board meetings and my recording sessions. 6 months of him showing up when he said he would, following through on every promise, being consistent in a way I didn't know men could be. 6 months of falling in love and being terrified of it. I want to meet her. Julian said one night over dinner. We were at his place, a penthouse downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I want to meet the little girl you talk about constantly. I want to be part of your whole life, Zara, not just the parts you're willing to share. It's a big step. I know. And I'm ready for it. Are you?
Was I?
Was I ready to let this man into the most sacred part of my life? To risk Amara getting attached to someone who might leave? To possibly give my daughter what she'd been asking for, a father figure who actually showed up? She asks about you. I admitted. She knows Mama has a friend she sees a lot.
She wants to know when she
Can meet him. Then let me meet her. Let me show both of you that I'm serious about this. About us.
So I did.
The meeting happened at a park. Neutral territory. Low pressure. Just a man, and a little girl, and a mother. Holding her breath hoping this went well. Amara was shy at first, hiding behind my legs, peeking out at this tall stranger with curious eyes. Julian crouched down to her level, making himself smaller, less intimidating. Hi, Amara. I'm Julian. Your mom
Has told me so much about you.
She says you're the smartest 4-year-old in the entire world. I'm almost 5, Amara corrected, that little sass coming through. My mistake. The smartest almost 5-year-old in the entire world. She giggled. Success. Do you like swings? She asked. I love swings. Want me to push you? She looked at me for permission. I nodded and watched as my daughter ran toward the playground with this man I was falling in love with, both of them laughing like they'd known each other forever. He pushed her on the swings, played tag, built sandcastles, carried her on his shoulders, did all the things she'd said daddies do. And when we were leaving, she grabbed his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Julian, she said, looking up at him with those big eyes. Yeah, sweetheart. Are you going to be my mama's forever friend? Or just a right-now friend? He glanced at me, something profound passing between us. Then he squeezed her hand gently. I'm planning on being a forever friend. If that's okay with you and your mama. It's okay with me, she declared. Then, to me, is it okay with you, Mama? I looked at this man holding my daughter's hand. This man who'd shown up consistently for 6 months. This man who'd crouched down to her level instead of expecting her to reach up to his. This man who'd asked for permission to be part of our lives instead of assuming he had a right to be there. It's okay with me, I said softly. Amara cheered. I told you magic people get happy endings. Julian proposed 1 year later at the Grammy Awards. I'd been nominated for Album of the Year for Phoenix Rising. Didn't win. Lost to Beyoncé, which, honestly, fair enough, but just being nominated was surreal. I was sitting in the audience in a custom gown that cost more than my first car, holding Julian's hand, watching the ceremony, when the camera suddenly panned to us on the massive screens throughout the arena. Our faces appeared. And then Julian was standing, pulling me to my feet, reaching into his jacket pocket. Oh my God, I whispered. You're not Zara Mitchell, he said, loud enough for the mic to catch it. You rose from nothing to become everything. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. The most talented, the most beautiful, and the absolute love of my life. You and Amara are my family. Let me make it official. He dropped to one knee. The entire arena erupted. The ring was stunning, a 3-carat diamond flanked by sapphires. But more importantly, next to it in the box was a smaller ring, a delicate silver band with a tiny heart. For Amara, he explained. Because I'm not just asking to marry you. I'm asking to be her father. Really her father. The kind who shows up for school plays and pushes swings and makes her feel safe. The kind who chooses her every single day. Will you both let me be part of your family? I was crying. The audience was cheering. Millions of people were watching this moment on live television. And I didn't care about any of them. All I cared about was this man on his knee, asking to love, not just me but my daughter. Asking to be what Marcus never was. Yes, I sobbed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, then pulled me into a kiss that would be replayed on entertainment shows for
weeks.
the audience went wild. Even the cameras were shaking. When we finally sat down, my phone was already exploding with messages. My manager, my mother's friends, Miss Patricia sending all caps. I knew it. I told you magic was real. But the message that made my heart stop was from a number I didn't have saved but recognized instantly.
A
Number I'd deleted years ago but had memorized like a scar. Marcus. Congratulations. Looks like you really did figure it out. I stared at that message for a long moment. All the words I'd imagined saying to him if he ever contacted me. All the anger and hurt and triumph I'd wanted to throw in his face. But looking at Julian beside me, at the ring on my finger, at the life I'd built, at the woman I'd become, none of that mattered anymore. I deleted the message without responding. He didn't deserve my words. He didn't deserve my energy. He didn't deserve any part of this moment. He'd made his choice 6 years ago. I'd made mine. And we were both living with the consequences. We got married 6 months later in a small, intimate ceremony. Just close friends and family. Amara was the flower girl, wearing a dress that matched mine, carrying a basket of sunflowers. When Julian said his vows, he knelt down and said them to Amara first. Amara, I promise to always be there for you. To push you on swings and carry you on my shoulders and make you feel safe. To show up at every school event and cheer the loudest at every achievement. To love you not because I have to, but because I choose to. You're not just going to be my stepdaughter. You're going to be my
daughter.
Period. No qualifiers. Is that okay with you? She nodded, tears streaming down her little face. Can I call you Daddy? I would be honored if you called me Daddy. She threw her arms around his neck. I love you, Daddy. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even my tough-as-nails manager was sobbing. Then Julian stood and faced me, said the most beautiful vows about partnership and respect and building a life together, about how he'd watched me rise from ashes and become a phoenix, and he just wanted to be the wind beneath my wings. When it was my turn, I looked at this man who'd chosen us, and I said the only thing that mattered. You showed me that not all men leave, that some men show up, that some men see a single mother with a child and say, I want to be part of that story. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for loving my daughter. Thank you for being the ending I never thought we'd get. We honeymooned in Bali. 2 weeks of just us, me, Julian, and Amara. Swimming in infinity pools. Building sandcastles on private beaches. Being a family. When we got back, Julian officially adopted Amara. Changed her last name to Foster. Made it legal. Made it permanent. She was 5 years old now, starting kindergarten at a prestigious private school. Smart, confident, loved. And when the teacher asked her to draw her family for a class project, she drew 3 people. Her, me, and
Julian.
No space for the man who'd left. No question about the man who'd stayed. Just our family. Complete. Life was perfect. Better than perfect. MY's 4th album dropped and went triple platinum. Julian's company expanded internationally, making him one of the youngest Black CEOs to take a tech company global. We bought a house, a real house with a yard and a pool and enough bedrooms for the siblings Amara kept asking for. Money wasn't just good, it was stupid good. I was officially a multi-millionaire. Forbes put me on their self-made women list. Oprah interviewed me for Super Soul Sunday. I was living a life I couldn't have imagined in. My wildest dreams 7 years ago when I was pregnant and alone and terrified. But success, I was learning, has a way of making the people from your past resurface. I started hearing things through the grapevine. Marcus was back in Detroit. Marcus was struggling. Marcus had heard about my success and my marriage and was telling people he always knew I had it in me. I ignored it. Ancient history. Not my problem. Not my concern. Until the day Amara came home from school with a strange story. Mama, she said, climbing into my lap while I was working on lyrics in my home studio, a man was at my School today. He was watching the playground during recess. My teacher said he left when she asked who he was. Ice water flooded my veins. What did he look like? I don't know. Brown skin.
Tall.
He was too far away. It was probably nothing. Probably just a parent or a contractor or someone with legitimate business at the
School.
But something in my gut said otherwise. I called Julian at work. Something happened at Amara's school today. I'm on my way home. That night, we doubled security, alerted the school, made sure everyone knew that only authorized people could pick up Amara or even approach her. 2 days later, my lawyer called. Zara, you need to sit down for this. What's wrong? Marcus Johnson has filed for partial custody of Amara. The world tilted. He what? He's claiming parental rights. Says he's been trying to reconnect but you've blocked him. He wants visitation. He abandoned us. He has no rights. Legally, he does. He's the biological father. Unless those rights were terminated. They weren't, because he never came around to terminate. He just disappeared.
My lawyer sighed.
I know, but now he's back. And now that you're wealthy and famous, he wants in. Oh hell no. This man who'd walked away while I was pregnant, who never called or visited or sent a single dollar of support, who let me struggle alone for 6 years while he did God knows what. Now he wanted custody? Now he wanted to be a father? Not to Amara. To my money. To my success. To the life I'd built without him. But he picked the wrong woman to fight. Because I wasn't that scared, broke waitress anymore. I was Zara Foster. Multi-platinum artist. Millionaire. Mother bear protecting her cub. And I was about to remind Marcus exactly who he'd walked away from. The custody hearing was set for 3 weeks away. 3 weeks of hell. 3 weeks of my lawyer preparing our case, while Marcus's lawyer sent threatening letters about parental alienation and denying a father his rights. 3 weeks of Amara asking why I looked
sad.
3 weeks of barely sleeping, barely eating, barely functioning. He can't win, Julian said one night, holding me while I cried angry tears. There's no judge in the world who's going to give custody to a man who abandoned his pregnant wife and never contacted his daughter for 6 years. But what if they do? What if they give him visitation? What if she has to spend weekends with a stranger who only wants her because I'm rich now? Then we fight. We appeal. We do whatever it takes. He pulled back to look at me. But Zara, you need to trust the process. You've documented everything, right? The abandonment, the lack of support, the zero contact.
Yes.
My lawyer has it all. But Marcus is claiming he tried to reach out and I blocked him. He's lying, but the truth will come out. It always does. I wanted to believe him, but I'd learned that the world isn't always fair. That sometimes bad people get second chances they don't deserve while good people keep fighting just to hold onto what's theirs. But then my lawyer called with news that changed everything. Zara, I need you to sit down. Not again. What now? I did some digging into Marcus's situation. Wanted to know what prompted this sudden custody grab after 6 years of silence. And he's broke. Like really broke. He got into some bad investments, lost everything, has creditors coming after him. He recently started working construction again, actually for a company owned by Foster Tech. My blood ran cold. He works for Julian's company? A subsidiary, yes. He's been there about 3 months. And Zara? He knows exactly who Julian Foster is.
Who he's married to.
He put it together. The pieces clicked into place like a nightmare puzzle. Marcus wasn't trying to be a father. He was trying to get access to my money through Amara. He'd probably seen my Forbes article, done the math on what I was worth, and decided his daughter was his ticket to financial recovery.
Can we use this? I asked.
Absolutely. And there's more. I subpoenaed his financial records. In 6 years, he never once tried to pay child support. Never set aside a single dollar for Amara. But in the last 2 months since learning about your marriage to his boss, He's suddenly claiming he's been saving for her. The timing is damning. Hope flickered in my chest. So, we can prove he's only doing this for money? We can strongly suggest it. And Zara? I also found out he has another child. A 3-year-old son with another woman. Also abandoned. Also never paid support. We can establish a pattern. Another child. Another woman he'd left. Another baby growing up without a father because Marcus was too selfish to be a man. Some people never change. They just keep making the same destructive choices and leaving wreckage in their
wake.
But this time, the wreckage was going to be his, not mine. The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray, matching my mood perfectly. I dressed in a conservative navy suit, not too flashy, not too casual. My lawyer had coached me. You need to look like a responsible mother, not a celebrity. We want the judge to see Zara the mom, not Zara the star. Julian came with me for support, though he couldn't be in the courtroom since he employed Marcus. Amara was with Miss Patricia, safe and unaware that her entire future was being decided by strangers in black robes. When I walked into that courtroom and saw Marcus for the first time in 6 years, I felt nothing. No anger. No hurt, no residual attraction or curiosity or even hatred. Just nothing. He'd gained weight, lost some hair, looked older than 32, probably from stress and bad choices. He was wearing a suit that didn't fit quite right, like he'd borrowed it or bought it at a discount store. His eyes, when they met mine, held something that might have been regret or might have been calculation. I couldn't tell anymore and didn't care to figure it out. The hearing started with Marcus's lawyer painting a picture of a father who'd made mistakes but wanted to make amends, who'd been young and scared but had grown up, who deserved a chance to know his daughter. Mr. Johnson deeply regrets his initial reaction to the pregnancy, his lawyer said smoothly. He was 26, unmarried, financially unstable. He made the wrong choice in leaving, but he's spent the last 6 years getting his life together, and now he wants to be the father Amara deserves. It was a good speech. Almost believable if you didn't know the truth. Then my lawyer stood up. Your Honor, let's examine the facts. Mr. Johnson didn't just leave when Ms. Mitchell was pregnant. He abandoned her at 7 months, took his belongings, and explicitly stated he wanted nothing to do with the
child.
He never called, never visited, never sent a birthday card or a Christmas present, never paid a single dollar in child support, not because Ms. Mitchell blocked him, but because he never tried. She pulled out documents, bank records, phone records, a timeline that showed 0 attempts at contact. Furthermore, Your Honor, Mr. Johnson has a 3-year-old son with another woman. Same pattern. Abandoned during pregnancy. 0 contact. 0 support. This isn't about being young and scared. This is about a pattern of abandoning his children and refusing responsibility. Marcus's face went red. His lawyer objected, but the judge overruled it. Ms. Foster, excuse me, Ms. Mitchell Foster, has built a stable, loving home for Amara. The child has been legally adopted by Ms. Foster's husband, who has been more of a father in 2 years than Mr. Johnson has been. In 6, Amara knows him as Daddy. She doesn't even know Mr. Johnson exists. Exactly. Marcus's lawyer jumped in. She doesn't know her biological father because Ms. Foster has kept them apart. No, my lawyer said coolly. She doesn't know him because he chose not to be known. And now, conveniently, after Ms. Foster's career has made her a multimillionaire, suddenly Mr. Johnson wants parental rights. The timing is suspect at best, predatory at worst. Objection. You're implying. I'm stating facts, Your Honor. Mr. Johnson has substantial debt. He recently learned that his employer's CEO is married to his ex-wife. He's financially desperate and legally entitled to nothing from Ms. Foster's wealth, because they were divorced before her success. But if he can establish custody, he could potentially claim child support from a woman worth tens of millions of dollars. The courtroom went silent. The judge looked at Marcus with new eyes. Critical eyes. Mr. Johnson. The judge said, "Is this true? Are you in financial difficulty?" Marcus hesitated too long. Yes, Your Honor, but that's not why. When did you become aware of your ex-wife's marriage to Julian Foster? About 3 months ago. And when did you file for custody? 2 months ago, but that's not. So for 6 years, you made no attempt to contact your daughter. But within 1 month of discovering your ex-wife married a billionaire, you suddenly want custody. The judge's voice was ice. Mr. Johnson, I've been on the bench for 20 years. I've seen every custody case you can imagine. And this looks like a man trying to use his daughter as a meal ticket. That's not true. Marcus's voice cracked. I want to know my daughter. I made mistakes, but I deserve a second chance. Second chances are earned, Mr. Johnson. What have you done to earn one? Have you paid the 6 years of back child support you owe? Have you attended any parenting classes? Have you made any effort whatsoever to prove you're capable of being a father? Silence. That's what I thought. The judge turned to me. Miss Foster, would you like to make a statement?
My lawyer nodded at me.
We'd prepared for this. I stood up, my hands shaking slightly, and looked directly at Marcus for the first time. Your Honor, 6 years ago, Marcus left me when I was 7 months pregnant. He told me I'd figure it out and walked away. And you know what? I did figure it out. I worked 2 jobs while pregnant. I gave birth alone.
I
raised our daughter in poverty while working as a waitress. I sang in a diner and got discovered. I built a career. I built a life. I gave Amara everything she needed and most of what she wanted, not with his help, but despite his absence. My voice got stronger with each word. 2 years ago, I met a man who didn't just love me, he loved my daughter. A man who asked for permission to be her father, who showed up to preschool recitals and doctor's appointments and bedtime routines.
Who
adopted her legally and loves her completely. Amara has a daddy. A real one. One who chose her. I turned to Marcus. You had 6 years to be a father. 6 years to call, or visit, or send a card, or pay support, or do literally anything that showed you cared. You did nothing. And now that I'm successful, now that I've built something without you, suddenly you want in?
No.
You don't get to abandon us, and then show up for the rewards. You don't get to traumatize my daughter by forcing yourself into her life because you need money. You made your choice. Live with it. The courtroom was dead silent. Marcus's face had gone pale. His lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The judge nodded slowly. Miss Foster, thank you. Mr. Johnson, I'm going to be very clear. Based on the evidence presented, I see no indication that you're genuinely interested in your daughter's well-being. I see a pattern of abandonment, a complete lack of financial or emotional support, and a suspicious timing that. You can like and subscribe to the video for more. We are stronger together. Suggests financial motivation. She banged her gavel. Petition for custody denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full child support calculation. For the past 6 years, including interest, you owe approximately $72,000 in back support, Mr. Johnson.
You'll
also be required to pay ongoing monthly support of $1,500. Marcus's face went white. I can't afford that. You should have thought about that before abandoning your child. You can't choose when to be a father based on convenience or profit. Petition denied. This court is adjourned. She stood and left. It was over. I'd won. More importantly, Amara had won. She got to keep the life we'd built, the family we'd chosen, the safety and stability she deserved. Marcus tried to approach me in the hallway afterward. Zara, please, can we just talk?
No.
I didn't even slow down. You had 6 years to talk. You chose silence. Now you live with it. I made mistakes. I was young and stupid and scared. I stopped then. Turned to face him one last time. You know what I was? Young and stupid and scared too.
But I
didn't run. I didn't abandon my responsibilities. I grew up. That's the difference between us, Marcus. When life got hard, I became a woman. You stayed a boy.
Goodbye.
I walked away from him for the last time. Julian was waiting by the car, and when he saw my face, he knew. We won. We won. He pulled me into his arms. I'm so proud of you. Let's go get our daughter and go home. That night, after Amara was asleep, I sat in my home studio, the room where I'd written songs about heartbreak and survival and rising from ashes, and I wrote one more song. The last song about Marcus, about that chapter of my life, about forgiving not for him, but for me. It was called Thank You for Leaving. The lyrics poured out. Thank you for walking away that night. Thank you for the pain that made me fight. Thank you for showing me I'm strong alone. Thank you for leaving so I could grow. You thought you'd break me when you walked out that door, thought I'd be nothing, thought I'd be poor, but baby, your leaving was my greatest gift. You tore me down so I could rebuild this. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for the fall. Thank you for teaching me I don't need you at all. You were my rock bottom, my darkest night, but look at me now, I'm the light. So thank you. Thank you for breaking my heart. You ended us, but you gave me my start. I recorded it that night.
Raw.
Acoustic.
Just me and a guitar.
No production. No features. Just truth. Released it a week later as a surprise single. It went viral immediately. Women everywhere sharing stories of their own Marcus, their own abandonment, their own rise from nothing. The song hit #1 in 3 days. Stayed there for 12 weeks. Became an anthem. And somewhere I knew Marcus was hearing it, knowing it was about him. Understanding finally, definitively, what he'd lost.
Not just me.
Not just Amara. But the chance to be part of something beautiful. The chance to grow and evolve. And become better. The chance to say someday that he'd been there for the struggle and the triumph. He'd chosen to miss it all. And he'd have to live with that forever. 5 years later, Amara was 10 years old. Smart, confident, talented. She'd started taking vocal lessons and had her father's, Julian's, head for business. She talked about being a singer-entrepreneur like her mom someday. We had 2 more children, twin boys 3 years old, who called me Mama and Julian Daddy and Amara Big Sister, like that's all they'd ever been. My 8th album had just dropped. Julian's company had gone public, making him a billionaire. We'd bought a house in LA for work and kept our Detroit home for roots. We traveled the world as a family, gave back constantly, lived a life of meaning and purpose and joy. One afternoon, I was at the boys' preschool for a parent event when I overheard 2 women talking. Did you hear about that guy who used to work in construction? Marcus something? He's been in and out of court for unpaid child support. Has 2 kids he never sees. Apparently, he tried to get custody of the older one a few years back, but the mother was famous or something and shut him down. What a deadbeat, right? Like, how do you abandon your own children? I didn't say anything. Didn't reveal that they were talking about my ex-husband. Just listened to them confirm what I already knew. Some people never change. Never learn. Never grow. They just keep making the same mistakes and wondering why life is so hard. But here's what I'd learned. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You can't make someone choose. You who's already chosen to leave. All you can do is choose yourself. Choose to rise. Choose to build. Choose to become so successful that their absence becomes irrelevant. That night, Julian and I were putting the twins to bed when Amara came into the room. Mom? Dad? I have to do a school project about family history. Can I ask you something? Of course, baby, I said. I know Dad adopted me when I was 5. I know I had a different father before that who wasn't around. The teacher said we should interview all our parents, but I don't want to talk to him. I don't even know him. Is that okay? Julian and I exchanged glances. We'd always been honest with her in age-appropriate ways. She knew her story. She just didn't know him. It's absolutely okay, Julian said. You don't owe anything to someone just because you share DNA. Family is about who shows up, who stays, who loves you. That's me. That's your mom. That's your brothers. That's your grandmother, Miss Patricia, and your aunts and uncles. That's your family. That's what I thought, she said, smiling. I just wanted to make sure. Because when I tell my story, I want to tell the truth. And the truth is I have the best family in the world. A mom who's a superstar. A dad who's a CEO. Brothers who are annoying but cute. And a life that's pretty much perfect. She hugged us both and skipped off to her room. Julian looked at me. You did that. You built this. We built this. I corrected. You gave her the foundation. I just added to the structure you'd already created. You're amazing, you know. That. I thought about the girl I'd been 11 years ago. Pregnant, abandoned, working in a diner with $17 in her checking account and no hope for the future. I thought about the woman I'd become. Multi-platinum artist. Wife. Mother of 3. Philanthropist. Role model. Living proof that your beginning doesn't determine your ending. I'm proud of me too, I said softly. I'm proud that I survived. That I fought. That I didn't let his leaving define
Me.
that I built something beautiful from the ruins. You didn't just build something beautiful, Julian said, kissing my forehead. You became something beautiful. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That night, after everyone was asleep, I stood in my closet, a walk-in the size of my old apartment, and looked at the Grammys sitting on the shelf, at the platinum records on the wall, at the designer clothes and expensive shoes and all the trappings of success. But what I was really seeing was the journey, the transformation. The girl who'd sung in a diner and the woman who'd sung at the Grammys. The mother who'd struggled to buy formula and the mother who'd set up trust funds for her children's children. The wife who'd been abandoned and the wife who'd been chosen. I'd started with nothing and built everything, not in spite of Marcus leaving, but because of it. His abandonment had forced me to discover strength I didn't know I had. His absence had created space for Julian to step in and show me what real love looked like. His failure as a father had taught me exactly what kind of mother I wanted
To be.
He'd meant to break me. Instead, he'd freed me. And that was the greatest revenge of all, not needing revenge. Not caring. Not thinking about him, except as a distant memory, a cautionary tale, a closed chapter in a book that was still being written in triumphant ink. I turned off the closet light and went to bed next to my husband, in my house, with my children sleeping safely. Down the hall, I'd won. Not the custody case, that was just a legal victory. I'd won life. I'd won happiness. I'd won everything that mattered. And Marcus? He'd lost it all the moment he walked out that door 11 years ago. He just hadn't known it yet. Epilogue. 15 years after that night in the diner when I first sang Respect and changed my life forever, I was invited back to Rosie's Diner for a special event. The city was renaming it Zara's Place in honor of my success story, starting there. Miss Patricia, now retired, and living in the house I'd bought her, was there crying tears of joy. The mayor was there. The media was there. And as I stood at that old jukebox where it all began, I thought about the journey. About the waitress who'd become a superstar. About the abandoned pregnant woman who'd become a voice for millions.
About the
broken girl who'd become a whole woman. I pushed quarters into that jukebox, the same one, still working after all these years, and selected Aretha Franklin's Respect. And I sang. One more time. In that diner. Where it all started. The crowd went wild. People cried. Cameras flashed. But all I saw was that scared 23-year-old girl who'd stood in this exact spot 11 years ago. Pregnant and alone, singing because she didn't know what else to do. I saw her. I honored her. I thanked her for refusing to give up. And I whispered to her across time, "We made it, girl. We really made it." Because we had. Against all odds, despite all obstacles, in the face of abandonment and poverty and fear, we'd risen. We'd become the phoenix. And we were still flying.